Hello, my name is Anson Garvin, and this is my final project demo. My project is called Spheropoly, which is a human versus robot Monopoly board game. Last week, I had constructed the frame of the board, had a basic user interface implemented, and had a basic game flow where the robot and player could buy properties and pay rent to each other. This week, I made significant progress on the game. First, and probably most noticeably, I finished painting the board and added some decals to the tiles. I also overhauled the UI, making the digital version of the board more closely match the real version and hopefully making the game easier to play. But beyond the visual stuff, I also added a fair amount of complexity to the gameplay itself. Instead of going over them all at once, I'm going to spend the rest of the demo going over each of the new mechanics and showing you clips along the way. First of all, I added 4 special tiles to the game, which are different than the normal properties you can buy. The first special tile is Go, and it works pretty much exactly like Go does in standard Monopoly. The only difference is that you have to land on it instead of passing it to get the money. I also added a tile called the Lake. The lake is just a blank tile, which doesn't do anything other than give a descriptive message, but it could theoretically be expanded to have an actual gameplay mechanic sometime in the future. The next 2 special tiles are the Jail and Go to Jail tiles. For the human player, they work how you expect. If you land on the tile with the yellow exclamation mark, you have to move your piece to jail. When the Sphero lands on the jail tile, on the other hand, its animation changes to a purple arrow, and it automatically navigates itself to the jail square. When it gets there, it displays a red frowny face until it can get out. When either player are in jail, they're not allowed to leave until they pay a bribe. And just like normal Monopoly, if you happen to land on the jail square itself, nothing happens. Last week, I didn't have any way for the game to end, but this week I added 2 new end conditions. The first is the Monopoly Classic. If someone lands on another person's piece of property, but they can't afford to pay the rent, they lose the game. The other end condition is significantly rarer. With the way my jail works, the player stays in jail until they can afford to buy their way out. But if they happen to not own any properties, they wouldn't be able to get any more income, and they would end up staying in jail forever. So instead of having that happen, I decided to turn that into a second losing condition instead. Overall, this was a fairly complicated project to work on. To put it all together, I ended up working with about a half a dozen different pieces of software, not to mention the robot itself and all the actual craft supplies, so there were a lot of moving parts to consider. The game itself was also a lot more complicated to program than I thought it would be, and even though it was just a simplified version of Monopoly, I'm sure there are some edge cases that I missed that need to be ironed out. But overall, I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing what I made. Thanks for watching.